Hello and welcome to Good Night Sleep Stories. I'm so glad you are here tonight. This is your time now, a gentle space carved out of the day, where you can simply let go, soften, and be carried by the calm of a story. The world outside may feel busy, perhaps even overwhelming at times. But here, within these moments, you are invited to step away from all of that. Imagine yourself wrapped in comfort, like a blanket pulled close on a cool evening. You are safe, you are cared for, and you are welcome here. Tonight, I'll be guiding you into the soft glow of a timeless fairy tale. One you may already know, the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But tonight, we'll tell it in a different way. Not as a tale of conflict, but as a journey of gentle imagery, soothing rain, and cozy moments that will help you drift into sleep. Before the story begins, simply allow yourself to arrive here. Notice how your body feels. Notice the way your breath moves in and out. There is nothing to change, nothing to fix. Just let your breath be, steady and natural, like a quiet rhythm carrying you into rest. Outside your window, perhaps you can imagine the sound of rain. Soft drops falling against glass, a delicate pattern, almost like nature's lullaby. Rain has a way of cleansing the day, washing worries into the earth, leaving only freshness and stillness behind. And as you listen, or imagine listening, the rain becomes part of your evening, blending into the story we will share. The beauty of bedtime is that you don't need to do anything at all. You don't need to think or plan. You don't need to solve or achieve. All that's asked of you is to let go, to rest, to surrender to the calm. Tonight, this story will be here to hold you, like a gentle companion, whispering comfort as you drift away. As we move forward together, I'll speak slowly, with ease, so that you can follow the rhythm without effort. Words may begin to blur at the edges as your mind softens into sleepiness. That's perfectly okay. In fact, it's exactly what is meant to happen. You don't need to stay alert, you can simply allow the story to carry you, even if you only hear pieces of it. The rest will sink into your dreams. So, let's begin this journey. You might imagine yourself preparing for sleep in a cozy cabin, safe from the gentle rain outside. A candle flickers nearby, casting a golden glow across the room. The air is cool but wrapped in warmth from blankets and pillows. And in this setting, the story will unfold, not rushed, not loud, but soft, patient, and calm. Tonight, our path takes us into an enchanted forest, where trees stretch high into the mist, and where raindrops gather like jewels on every leaf. Within this forest lies a tale of kindness, of gentle hearts, and of simple joys found in unexpected places. So, as you rest here, I invite you to close your eyes, to soften your breathing, and to know that this time is yours. A time to drift. A time to dream. A time to listen without needing to remember, without needing to hold on. The story will be here whether you're awake or already fast asleep. And now, as the rain continues to fall softly in the background, let us take our first steps together, gently leaving behind the weight of the day, and opening the door to a fairy tale world. And now, As you settle more deeply into this moment, let's allow the body and the mind to soften, to release, and to sink into ease. You have arrived here, and there is nothing more required of you. Nothing to do, nowhere to be, no one to become. This time is yours, and it is safe, gentle, and calm. Take a slow, steady breath in, through the nose if that feels comfortable, and let it drift out softly through the mouth. Notice how even a single deep breath creates more space within you. Inhaling quietly, exhaling even more slowly. Letting go with each release, letting the body know it is okay to rest now. Another soft inhale, and then a gentle exhale, as if you are sighing out the weight of the day. Imagine your breath carrying away every thought, every worry, every leftover task. Let them dissolve, like mist carried off by the rain. Your body, too, deserves this stillness. Notice the crown of your head, the way it feels as you simply bring awareness there. Nothing to change, only to notice. Allow a sense of ease to rest upon your forehead, smoothing out any tension. The eyes become heavy, soft, and relaxed. Eyelids resting gently, as if they are already drifting towards sleep. Bring your attention down to your cheeks, your jaw. If there has been tightness here, let it melt away. Let your mouth rest in the slightest of smiles, not forced, simply natural, as though you were recalling a moment of kindness. Feel your tongue rest loosely, no effort, no holding. Another breath, slow and unhurried. Inhale like a wave rising, exhale like that same wave dissolving back into the sea. Your breathing is steady, calm, and peaceful now. Let that ease travel down into your neck, into your shoulders. Shoulders often hold so much, the weight of work, of responsibilities, of unspoken thoughts. Allow the rain outside to carry that weight away. With every drop, imagine the tension loosening, falling away. Your shoulders sink heavier into rest, as though gravity itself were inviting you to let go. Feel this sensation drifting down your arms. The upper arms soften, the elbows rest. The forearms feel loose, calm. Hands fall open gently, fingers curling in the most natural way, warm and still. Perhaps you notice a gentle tingling or a warmth in your palms, a sign of energy releasing, the body moving into calm. And now, bring awareness to your chest. Notice the gentle rise and fall, like a calm tide along the shore. Each breath is effortless. Each exhale a release. Behind the breath, the heart beats steadily, quietly, like a drum keeping rhythm in the background of this peaceful moment. Your stomach, your abdomen, rises and falls gently with each breath. Let it expand softly, and then contract with ease, no holding, no tension. Imagine this area filling with light, with comfort, with stillness. Down into your hips now, let the muscles soften. The hips are strong, carrying you through your days, but here, they are free to rest. Allow them to sink deeper into the surface beneath you, supported, held, safe. The thighs relax, the knees loosen. Your legs become heavy, sinking down, warm and calm. The calves soften, the ankles release. And finally, your feet, those anchors that carry you everywhere, allow them to rest. Notice the toes, relaxed and easy. Now, your whole body is resting. From head to toe, you are wrapped in calmness. Imagine a soft blanket of tranquility covering you, tucked in with warmth, perfectly cozy. The rain outside continues to fall, steady and rhythmic, as though nature itself is watching over you tonight. If any thoughts drift in, let them pass by like clouds across the sky. You don't need to hold them. You don't need to chase them. They can float away, leaving only the clear stillness of your inner space. And as you rest here, allow your mind to wander gently into imagery. Perhaps you see yourself lying in a little cottage, safe and warm, while outside the rain taps against the window panes. A fire glows softly in the hearth, casting flickers of light across wooden beams. The air smells of earth, of wood, of rain-soaked leaves. Every sound is a lullaby, the hush of rain, the crackle of fire, the steady breath of your own body. Take this time to simply be here. Breathing slowly, resting fully. You may repeat silently to yourself, I am safe. I am calm. I am ready for rest. These words can flow through you, like gentle ripples across still water. Let's return once more to the breath. Inhaling softly, filling your chest and stomach with air. Exhaling, longer, slower, softer. Like a candle flickering out, like the rain sliding down the window. Again, inhale with ease, and exhale with release. Let your body sink deeper each time. You are now lighter in your thoughts, heavier in your body, and softer in your spirit. Everything around you supports your rest. The rain, the story, the bed beneath you, the quiet all around. All of it exists to guide you gently into dreams. As this relaxation deepens, know that you are ready to be carried into the story. You don't need to move or prepare. Simply continue to breathe, continue to rest, and allow the tale to arrive. It will unfold slowly, with care, like a flower opening its petals under the gentle touch of rain. And now, with your body softened and your mind at ease, we will gently begin our journey into the enchanted forest, where the story of Snow White awaits. And now, with your body resting deeply and your breath moving softly, we can begin to shift, gently, seamlessly, into the world of story. The relaxation you've invited into every part of yourself will remain with you, like a quiet foundation beneath all that comes next. You don't need to hold on to it, for it holds you. It will stay steady and calm, even as your mind drifts into images, scenes, and places woven from gentle imagination. Picture the rain you've been hearing, or imagining, continuing its soft rhythm. Outside the window of your cozy space, the night sky stretches wide, clouded and silver. Each raindrop falls with purpose, yet without hurry. Their sound becomes a lullaby, steady and patient, guiding you onward. And in that rhythm, something begins to stir. The sound of the rain becomes the sound of a forest, leaves trembling softly beneath the touch of falling drops. You find yourself moving easily into this world, carried by the comfort of sound, of breath, of stillness. The forest around you is calm. Tall trees rise, their trunks strong, their leaves glistening with silver beads of water. The air is fresh, cool, and alive with the scent of earth and moss. Mist curls between the branches, softening everything it touches, as though the whole forest were wrapped in a dream. You walk slowly, unhurried, your steps light upon the forest floor. Each step is cushioned by fallen leaves, damp and fragrant. The path is clear, winding gently, inviting you deeper. There is no rush, no need to decide where you are going. The forest guides you, quietly, with each step you take. Somewhere ahead, a soft glow begins to appear. Not harsh, not bright, but gentle, like the flicker of a lantern behind a window. You notice how the glow rests on the mist, spreading into golden threads that weave among the trees. The rain softens here, as though the forest itself is sheltering you, protecting you, welcoming you further in. The glow grows warmer as you move toward it, and soon, you find yourself standing at the edge of a story, one you may know, but tonight, you will see it in a new way. A story that has traveled through time, across generations, told and retold. And yet, here in this forest, beneath this gentle rain, it feels entirely your own. You pause for a moment, taking it in. The air is hushed, holding space for what comes next. Every sound, the rain, the distant rustle of leaves, the faint call of an owl, all of it seems to lean toward the unfolding of this tale. And as you stand there, the glow shifts, opening into a vision of a kingdom. A castle rises, pale stone against the backdrop of rolling hills. Its towers reach upward, capped with slate roofs glistening under the touch of rain. Lights twinkle faintly in the high windows, golden beacons in the misty night. This is where the story begins. A kingdom, wrapped in beauty, yet carrying its secrets. A palace, both grand and silent. And within its walls, a tale of innocence and kindness, of jealousy softened tonight into gentle shadows, of companionship, and of rest. You feel the forest quiet even more, as though it, too, wishes to listen. The rain becomes a background hum, steady and calming. Your breath moves with it, slow and natural. You are ready now, ready to step into the beginning of Snow White's story. And so, with one final deep breath, and a slow release, you allow yourself to cross that threshold. To leave behind the day, to leave behind the waking world, and to move fully into this fairy tale night. The story is waiting. And it begins, now. The story begins, as so many fairy tales do, with a kingdom, a place of rolling green hills and misty valleys, where the air was often sweet with the scent of wildflowers, and where streams wound gently through meadows of golden grass. This kingdom was peaceful, surrounded by forests that stretched tall and endless, their leaves shimmering with the touch of rain. Birds nested in the high branches, their songs soft and melodic, and deer could often be seen moving quietly among the trees, their steps light upon the moss. At the very heart of this land stood a castle, a vision of pale stone rising into the misty skies. Its towers reached upward as though they wished to touch the clouds, their spires crowned with slate roofs that glistened whenever rain passed across the land. The castle was not merely a fortress, but a home, and its windows glowed with golden warmth in the evenings, as though candles within each room flickered to keep the night away. The people of the kingdom adored their land. They lived in cottages with gardens that overflowed with herbs and flowers, and they tended to fields of wheat that swayed gently in the wind. They cherished the safety of their kingdom, knowing that beyond the forests and rivers, the world could be unpredictable, but here, within these borders, there was a sense of gentle order, a rhythm of life that brought comfort. Within the castle lived a queen, a woman of extraordinary beauty and grace. Her hair fell like strands of midnight, her skin pale and smooth, and her eyes, though striking, often held a gaze that seemed distant, thoughtful, and perhaps, at times, sorrowful. For while she lived in a place of grandeur, she longed for something her heart could not yet hold, the joy of a child, a daughter she could love and guide. One evening, as snowflakes drifted softly from the sky, the queen sat by a tall window. She watched as the world outside was blanketed in white, each flake landing silently upon the earth, transforming the landscape into something dreamlike, pure, and hushed. The fire beside her crackled gently, sending warmth into the room, yet her thoughts wandered far beyond the stone walls of the castle. In her hands, she held a piece of fabric stretched upon a wooden frame. She was sewing, her needle gliding in and out with delicate care, a rhythm as steady as her breath. As she sewed, her finger pricked, and a single drop of crimson blood fell upon the snow resting on the sill outside her window. The red upon white was so vivid, so striking, that it filled her heart with a wish. She whispered softly to herself, "If only I might have a daughter, with skin as pure as the snow, lips as red as the blood, and hair as dark as the ebony wood upon which I rest my needle." It was a tender wish, fragile as the snowflake that carried it away. But wishes, when carried by the wind of a fairy tale, often find their way to the heart of destiny. Time passed, and the queen's wish was answered. She gave birth to a daughter, a child of extraordinary beauty, who was given the name Snow White. Her skin was indeed as white as snow, her lips as red as the drop of blood, and her hair as dark as ebony wood. She was gentle from the start, her presence bringing warmth to every corner of the castle. The kingdom rejoiced at her birth. The bells in the towers rang, echoing across valleys and forests, carrying the joyful news to every village and farm. People lit candles in their windows, their flames flickering in the night like stars brought down to earth. There was laughter, music, and celebration. For in a world that could often be quiet and uncertain, the birth of a child was like a promise, a reminder that life continues, fresh and new, carrying with it the hope of tomorrow. The queen, though weak after her child's birth, felt her heart overflow with love as she held Snow White in her arms. She would look down at her daughter and smile, her sorrow and longing eased by this precious gift. Yet as with so many tales, joy was shadowed by the passage of time. The queen's health began to fade, her body weary from the effort of bringing forth life. Not long after, she passed quietly, leaving behind her beloved child. Though sadness touched the kingdom, Snow White remained surrounded by love. The people adored her gentleness, her kindness, and her radiant innocence. She would grow to wander the gardens of the castle, laughing softly as she watched butterflies dance among the flowers, or as she listened to the rain falling gently upon the stone paths. Time, as it always does, carried forward. The king, wishing to care for his daughter and the kingdom, chose to remarry. His new queen was a woman of striking beauty, so fair and commanding that all who looked upon her were compelled to admire her. But beneath her beauty lay a heart troubled by envy, a spirit restless and unsatisfied. In her chambers, the new queen kept a mirror, tall and framed in polished wood, its glass shimmering with an otherworldly light. This mirror was no ordinary looking glass, but one touched by magic, capable of answering questions spoken into its depth. Each morning, the queen would stand before it, her reflection perfect, her gown flowing around her, and she would ask softly, "Mirror, mirror, on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror, bound by its spell, would reply, "You, my queen, are fairest of all." These words pleased her, soothed her, and yet, within her, there remained a whisper of unease, the kind that grows when beauty alone must carry the weight of one's worth. For as Snow White grew older, her innocence blossomed into grace, and her beauty began to shine more brightly than even the queen's. But tonight, in our telling, there is no need to dwell on envy or cruelty. Instead, let us linger in the images of the castle, in the soft glow of torchlight against stone, in the echo of footsteps across marble floors, in the hush of rain falling beyond tall windows. Let us stay in the quiet moments where Snow White wandered the palace gardens, her hand brushing against roses heavy with dew, her eyes wide with wonder at the world she was discovering. The kingdom, though touched by the queen's restlessness, remained a place of beauty. And Snow White, within its walls, was like a light in the shadows, her presence soft and calming, a comfort to all who knew her. And so, with the rain still falling outside, and the forest standing watch beyond the castle walls, we leave this first part of the story here, within a kingdom of mist and stone, of beauty and longing, of wishes carried by snowflakes and answered in the form of a child. The story will continue, gently, dreamily, with Snow White's journey beyond the palace, and into the embrace of the forest itself. But for now, rest here in this beginning, where the world is still soft, and where every sound is a lullaby, carrying you deeper into peace. And now, as we continue our journey, the story carries us forward. The kingdom has grown quieter with time, and Snow White, no longer a small child, wanders the world with the grace of someone beginning to discover who she is meant to be. She has known both joy and shadow, laughter and silence, and though the halls of the castle remain her home, her heart longs often for the wide, open world beyond its gates. One morning, the air was cool, and the sky stretched in pale blue softness, brushed with drifting clouds. Snow White walked slowly into the gardens, her hand brushing along the stone walls where ivy curled and flowers leaned toward the sun. The roses glistened with dew, each droplet catching the light and scattering it in tiny rainbows, and she paused for a moment simply to breathe, to feel the warmth of sunlight upon her skin and the gentle coolness of the breeze as it moved past her cheeks. Yet this day was not like the others. A restlessness seemed to move within the castle walls, a whisper carried from chamber to chamber, until it found its way into Snow White's quiet world. For the Queen's mirror had spoken words that unsettled the balance of her heart. Snow White is the fairest of them all. Though Snow White did not know the depth of envy this truth had stirred, she felt its echo in subtle ways, in the colder glances of her stepmother, in the silence that filled rooms where once there had been warmth. It was as if a shadow had begun to stretch across the castle, reaching slowly toward her. One afternoon, as she gathered herbs at the edge of the forest, she was met by the king's huntsman. His steps were heavy, his voice unsteady, and though his words were cloaked in duty, his heart trembled with compassion. He could not bring harm to her, not this gentle soul who looked at the world with wonder. And so he told her to run, to leave the safety of the castle and seek refuge within the forest. Snow White listened, her breath soft, her heart unsure. The forest loomed before her, its trees rising tall like guardians, their branches weaving a canopy of shifting green. With one last look at the world she had known, she stepped forward, and the forest opened its arms to receive her. The path beneath her feet was soft with fallen leaves, their colors deep and earthy, their scent rich with the memory of rain. Birds fluttered above, their wings whispering as they moved between branches. The air grew cooler as she wandered deeper, the sunlight falling in scattered patterns upon moss and stone. At first, the forest seemed endless, each step carrying her further into mystery, but soon its vastness became a kind of comfort. She walked until her legs grew weary, and just as twilight began to settle, she saw it, a small cottage tucked between the roots of the forest, its windows glowing softly, as though it had been waiting just for her. Smoke curled gently from its chimney, carrying the scent of wood and hearth, and flowers grew in cheerful clusters along its walls. Snow White approached with caution, her footsteps quiet, and peered through the window. Inside, she saw a table carefully set, chairs of small size arranged neatly around it, and a room filled with the humble warmth of life. Everything seemed touched by care, the tools upon the shelves, the folded cloths, the polished wooden floor. She opened the door, and it creaked softly, as though sighing at her arrival. Inside, the cottage was even more inviting, with a hearth where embers glowed and a pot that still held the scent of a meal. She moved gently through the room, touching nothing, but admiring everything, until at last she found a row of small beds, each one tucked neatly with blankets. Her body was weary, her eyelids heavy, and so, with a quiet breath, she lay down upon the softest bed she could find. The blanket wrapped around her like a promise of safety, and within moments, sleep carried her into dreams. When morning came, the cottage was filled with voices. Gentle, curious voices that whispered and wondered who might be resting in their home. Snow White stirred, and as she opened her eyes, she found herself surrounded by 7 faces, each kind, each unique, each filled with a mixture of wonder and surprise. These were the 7 dwarfs, the guardians of the cottage and the forest beyond. They listened as Snow White told her story in a voice soft and quiet, as though speaking too loudly might disturb the peace of the morning. And when she finished, they looked at one another and nodded. Their hearts, simple and good, understood her need for refuge, and they offered her a place among them. Snow White stayed, and in time, her days unfolded into gentle rhythms. She would sweep the cottage floor, her movements slow and graceful, as sunlight streamed through the windows. She would gather berries and herbs in the forest, her basket filling as birds followed her with song. She would laugh softly with the dwarfs in the evenings, their stories weaving comfort into the hours before sleep. The forest, once strange, became a place of belonging. She would wander along streams that sparkled in the light, dip her hands into cool water, and listen to the hush of leaves as they swayed above. Deer would come near, their eyes calm and watchful, and rabbits would pause in their play, unafraid of her presence. The world seemed to know her heart, to sense her gentleness, and it responded with trust. Yet beyond the forest, the queen's envy deepened. The mirror, ever faithful to truth, continued to speak words she could not bear. And so she disguised herself, cloaked her beauty in deception, and set out to find Snow White. The first time she came, she brought with her laces for a bodice, bright and lovely. Snow White welcomed her kindly, not knowing the danger she faced. The laces were drawn too tightly, and Snow White fell faint. But the dwarfs, returning home, found her in time, loosening the ties and reviving her with gentle care. The second time, the queen brought a comb, polished and gleaming. Again Snow White, with her heart too open to suspect malice, accepted it. The comb was poisoned, and as it touched her hair, she collapsed once more. But again, the dwarfs returned, removing the comb and bringing her back to life with patience and love. The third time, the queen's cruelty reached its sharpest edge. She brought an apple, red as blood, polished until it shone. Snow White, charmed by its beauty, took a bite, and the spell fell upon her at once. She sank to the ground, her body stilled, her breath quieted. This time, though the dwarfs tried with all their strength, they could not wake her. Believing her gone, they wept, their tears falling softly upon the forest floor. They could not bear to place her in the earth, and so they built for her a coffin of crystal, clear and shining, so that the beauty of her face might never be hidden. They laid her within it, surrounded by flowers, and placed it deep in the forest, where the sun could shine upon it by day and the stars watch over it by night. And there Snow White rested, her body still, her lips as red as ever, her skin as fair, her hair as dark, as though she were simply sleeping. The forest grew quiet around her, as if in mourning, and the dwarfs kept watch, their hearts heavy with sorrow. But the story, like the forest, does not end in silence. For one day, as the seasons turned and the air grew sweet with spring, a prince came riding through the forest. He saw the crystal coffin, saw the maiden within, and was struck by her beauty, her stillness, her quiet grace. He felt his heart move, not with haste or urgency, but with a deep and steady love. He asked the dwarfs to let him take her with him, to keep her close, not as a possession, but as a vow of devotion. And so they agreed, trusting the gentleness they saw in him. As Snow White was lifted, the spell that bound her was broken, the piece of apple dislodged, and breath returned to her. Her eyes opened slowly, dreamlike, as though she had been walking in a faraway land and had only just returned. The dwarfs rejoiced, the prince knelt beside her, and Snow White smiled, her heart filled with gratitude for life renewed. And so, as the story moves toward its quiet end, Snow White left the forest, but never its memory. She carried with her the peace of its streams, the whisper of its trees, the laughter of her friends. She would live not only as a queen of kingdoms, but as a guardian of the gentleness she had known in the woods. And you, too, may carry this story with you, letting its softness rest within your heart as you drift toward sleep. The forest is still there, waiting, with its moss and its quiet rivers, its deer and its birdsong. The cottage still glows, its windows bright in the twilight. And Snow White, her journey complete, leaves you with the reminder that even in the deepest shadows, light finds its way. And now, as your eyes grow heavier, and your breath grows deeper, let this story fade softly into the background of your dreams. May your night be filled with calm, with comfort, with the gentle promise of peace. Good night, good night. And now, as we continue our gentle journey, the story leads us deeper into the forest, into the quiet heart of the dwarf's cottage, a place of warmth, safety, and soft rhythms, where life unfolds at an unhurried pace. Snow White had found shelter here, and in time, the cottage itself seemed to embrace her presence. Each morning, she would rise with the sun, the soft light spilling through small windows that framed the trees outside. The forest awoke slowly, its song beginning with a single bird, then two, until the air shimmered with the sound of wings and the gentle chorus of morning. Inside, the cottage was peaceful. The wooden beams overhead glowed golden in the early light, and the scent of pine lingered from the walls. Snow White would move quietly, her bare feet padding against the smooth floorboards as she tidied the space, her hands smoothing the blankets upon each of the 7 small beds. She hummed softly to herself, her voice blending with the forest song that drifted in through the open shutters. The dwarfs, each with their own gentle character, rose one by one. Some awoke briskly, stretching with eager arms, ready for the day's work, while others lingered beneath the covers, savoring the last moments of dreamlike rest. Snow White moved among them with kindness, greeting each with a smile, her words carrying the warmth of a hearth fire. Breakfast was always a simple yet comforting affair. The table, though small, was always filled with care. Fresh bread rested in a woven basket, still warm from the oven, its crust golden and soft. Honey gleamed in a small clay pot, its sweetness waiting to be drizzled over slices of bread. Jars of berries, collected from the forest, added color and fragrance. And steaming mugs of herbal tea, made from leaves Snow White had gathered herself, filled the air with soothing aromas. They ate together, their conversations gentle, punctuated by quiet laughter. Snow White listened as the dwarfs spoke of their work, of the gems and stones they mined deep in the mountains, their voices carrying both pride and simplicity. Though their tasks were hard, there was a joy in their telling, for each day ended with the warmth of home, where they could share their lives with one another. After breakfast, the dwarfs would set off, their lanterns swinging softly, their sturdy boots carrying them down winding paths that led toward the mines. Snow White would wave from the cottage door, her hand lifted gracefully as their figures grew smaller in the distance. Then, as the forest grew quieter, she would turn back inside, her day unfolding in its own gentle rhythm. There was always something to tend to. She would sweep the floor with a straw broom, the soft bristles making a hushed sound as they moved across the wood. She would dust the shelves, carefully placing each item back in its place. Sometimes she would open the windows wide, letting fresh air drift in, carrying with it the scent of pine needles and the faint sweetness of wildflowers. When her work was done, she often wandered into the forest. She carried a basket with her, its handle worn smooth by her hand, and she filled it with berries, herbs, or wild mushrooms. Along the way, she greeted the creatures of the woods. The birds would hop closer, tilting their heads as if listening to her voice. Deer would emerge from the trees, their steps light and soundless, their dark eyes calm. Rabbits would dart in and out of tall grasses, pausing long enough to nibble before disappearing again. Snow White spoke to them as though they were friends, her words soft, her laughter quiet. And though they could not answer, the forest itself seemed to respond, the rustle of leaves, the sparkle of sunlight through branches, the whisper of wind moving gently through tall grasses. Afternoons in the cottage were filled with small comforts. Sometimes she baked, filling the room with the aroma of bread or sweet cakes. At other times, she sat by the window with her sewing, her hands moving slowly, her needle glinting in the light. And sometimes, she simply rested, her eyes drifting closed as she listened to the soothing patter of rain against the roof. When evening came, the dwarfs returned, their laughter ringing out before they even reached the cottage door. Snow White welcomed them with a meal already prepared, hearty stews simmered with herbs, fresh loaves of bread, and sweet treats to finish. They ate by the glow of the hearth, their faces lit with the orange flicker of firelight, their voices weaving stories that filled the room with life. After supper, they often sat together by the fire. Snow White would listen to the dwarfs' tales, stories of mountains and rivers, of hidden treasures found deep in the earth, of days long past. Sometimes, she shared her own gentle dreams, visions of gardens filled with roses, of skies so wide they seemed to hold the whole world. The room would fall quiet at times, their thoughts shared in silence as flames crackled softly, as shadows danced along the wooden walls. When the hour grew late, Snow White helped each dwarf to his bed, tucking blankets carefully, smoothing pillows, and wishing them sweet dreams. Then, when all was still, she would retreat to her own rest, her heart at peace, her body sinking into the softness of the small bed she had chosen. And so the days passed, each one like a bead strung gently upon a string, simple, beautiful, filled with moments of quiet companionship. There was no rush, no urgency, only the steady flow of time, marked by the rising and setting of the sun, the gentle rhythms of work and rest, laughter and stillness. Even when shadows reached from beyond the forest, the envy of the queen, the whispers of danger, the cottage itself remained a place of light. Its walls held warmth, its windows framed beauty, and its hearth glowed with the promise of safety. For Snow White, it was more than shelter, it was home. And as you listen, you too may feel yourself welcomed into this space. You may imagine the glow of the hearth, the scent of bread baking, the soft creak of the wooden chairs as friends gather round. You may hear the laughter, the quiet conversations, the hush of night settling over the forest outside. The cottage, in its simple beauty, is a reminder that peace can be found in small things, in the sound of rain upon the roof, in the warmth of a shared meal, in the softness of a bed prepared with care. And as this chapter draws slowly toward its close, let that peace settle within you. Feel yourself resting, as though you, too, are beneath the roof of the dwarf's cottage. The fire glows softly, the forest watches quietly outside, and the night stretches wide and calm above. This is a place of safety, of comfort, of stillness. And now, as the story flows onward, we carry with us the warmth of the cottage, the kindness of the dwarfs, and the quiet presence of Snow White, whose journey continues. And now, as we continue our gentle journey, the story leads us deeper into the forest, into the quiet heart of the dwarf's cottage, a place of warmth, safety, and soft rhythms, where life unfolds at an unhurried pace. Snow White had found shelter here, and in time, the cottage itself seemed to embrace her presence. Each morning, she would rise with the sun, the soft light spilling through small windows that framed the trees outside. The forest awoke slowly, its song beginning with a single bird, then two, until the air shimmered with the sound of wings and the gentle chorus of morning. Inside, the cottage was peaceful. The wooden beams overhead glowed golden in the early light, and the scent of pine lingered from the walls. Snow White would move quietly, her bare feet padding against the smooth floorboards as she tidied the space, her hands smoothing the blankets upon each of the 7 small beds. She hummed softly to herself, her voice blending with the forest song that drifted in through the open shutters. The dwarfs, each with their own gentle character, rose one by one. Some awoke briskly, stretching with eager arms, ready for the day's work, while others lingered beneath the covers, savoring the last moments of dreamlike rest. Snow White moved among them with kindness, greeting each with a smile, her words carrying the warmth of a hearth fire. Breakfast was always a simple yet comforting affair. The table, though small, was always filled with care. Fresh bread rested in a woven basket, still warm from the oven, its crust golden and soft. Honey gleamed in a small clay pot, its sweetness waiting to be drizzled over slices of bread. Jars of berries, collected from the forest, added color and fragrance. And steaming mugs of herbal tea, made from leaves Snow White had gathered herself, filled the air with soothing aromas. They ate together, their conversations gentle, punctuated by quiet laughter. Snow White listened as the dwarfs spoke of their work, of the gems and stones they mined deep in the mountains, their voices carrying both pride and simplicity. Though their tasks were hard, there was a joy in their telling, for each day ended with the warmth of home, where they could share their lives with one another. After breakfast, the dwarfs would set off, their lanterns swinging softly, their sturdy boots carrying them down winding paths that led toward the mines. Snow White would wave from the cottage door, her hand lifted gracefully as their figures grew smaller in the distance. Then, as the forest grew quieter, she would turn back inside, her day unfolding in its own gentle rhythm. There was always something to tend to. She would sweep the floor with a straw broom, the soft bristles making a hushed sound as they moved across the wood. She would dust the shelves, carefully placing each item back in its place. Sometimes she would open the windows wide, letting fresh air drift in, carrying with it the scent of pine needles and the faint sweetness of wildflowers. When her work was done, she often wandered into the forest. She carried a basket with her, its handle worn smooth by her hand, and she filled it with berries, herbs, or wild mushrooms. Along the way, she greeted the creatures of the woods. The birds would hop closer, tilting their heads as if listening to her voice. Deer would emerge from the trees, their steps light and soundless, their dark eyes calm. Rabbits would dart in and out of tall grasses, pausing long enough to nibble before disappearing again. Snow White spoke to them as though they were friends, her words soft, her laughter quiet. And though they could not answer, the forest itself seemed to respond, the rustle of leaves, the sparkle of sunlight through branches. The whisper of wind moving gently through tall grasses. Afternoons in the cottage were filled with small comforts. Sometimes she baked, filling the room with the aroma of bread or sweet cakes. At other times, she sat by the window with her sewing, her hands moving slowly, her needle glinting in the light. And sometimes, she simply rested, her eyes drifting closed as she listened to the soothing patter of rain against the roof. When evening came, the dwarfs returned, their laughter ringing out before they even reached the cottage door. Snow White welcomed them with a meal already prepared, hearty stews simmered with herbs, fresh loaves of bread, and sweet treats to finish. They ate by the glow of the hearth, their faces lit with the orange flicker of firelight, their voices weaving stories that filled the room with life. After supper, they often sat together by the fire. Snow White would listen to the dwarfs' tales, stories of mountains and rivers, of hidden treasures found deep in the earth, of days long past. Sometimes, she shared her own gentle dreams, visions of gardens filled with roses, of skies so wide they seemed to hold the whole world. The room would fall quiet at times, their thoughts shared in silence as flames crackled softly, as shadows danced along the wooden walls. When the hour grew late, Snow White helped each dwarf to his bed, tucking blankets carefully, smoothing pillows, and wishing them sweet dreams. Then, when all was still, she would retreat to her own rest, her heart at peace, her body sinking into the softness of the small bed she had chosen. And so the days passed, each one like a bead strung gently upon a string, simple, beautiful, filled with moments of quiet companionship. There was no rush, no urgency, only the steady flow of time, marked by the rising and setting of the sun, the gentle rhythms of work and rest, laughter and stillness. Even when shadows reached from beyond the forest, the envy of the queen, the whispers of danger, the cottage itself remained a place of light. Its walls held warmth, its windows framed beauty, and its hearth glowed with the promise of safety. For Snow White, it was more than shelter, it was home. And as you listen, you too may feel yourself welcomed into this space. You may imagine the glow of the hearth, the scent of bread baking, the soft creak of the wooden chairs as friends gather round. You may hear the laughter, the quiet conversations, the hush of night settling over the forest outside. The cottage, in its simple beauty, is a reminder that peace can be found in small things, in the sound of rain upon the roof, in the warmth of a shared meal, in the softness of a bed prepared with care. And as this chapter draws slowly toward its close, let that peace settle within you. Feel yourself resting, as though you, too, are beneath the roof of the dwarf's cottage. The fire glows softly, the forest watches quietly outside, and the night stretches wide and calm above. This is a place of safety, of comfort, of stillness. And now, as the story flows onward, we carry with us the warmth of the cottage, the kindness of the dwarfs, and the quiet presence of Snow White, whose journey continues. And now, as our journey draws near its end, the story of Snow White begins to fade softly into the quiet spaces of memory. What once unfolded with forests and cottages, with whispers of danger and moments of rest, now settles gently, like twilight descending upon the earth. The enchanted tale has reached its resolution, and yet the peace it carries lingers. It moves through the forest still, through the tall branches and winding streams, through the flowers that lean toward the light of the moon. And as you listen, you may feel yourself resting more deeply, as though the stillness of this story has been shared with you. Imagine yourself now, standing in the forest where Snow White once lay in her crystal bed. The air is cool and tender, filled with the fragrance of blossoms that open beneath the stars. Around you, the trees stand tall and steady, their leaves whispering softly in the night breeze. A hush has settled over everything, a hush that invites you to release all thoughts, all worries, letting them drift like leaves carried away by the stream. The dwarfs have returned to their little cottage, its windows glowing with gentle light, its hearth warm, its rooms filled with comfort. Their laughter is softer now, touched with relief, touched with gratitude. They speak quietly to one another, voices carrying like lullabies through the still night. For them, the world has shifted, sorrow has turned to joy, loss has turned to renewal. They rest in the knowledge that all is well once more. Far beyond the forest, the prince and Snow White move forward, their steps gentle, their hearts bound not by haste, but by the slow unfolding of trust and peace. They walk through gardens of green, past rivers that gleam beneath the sun, toward a life where kindness reigns quietly, without need for grandeur. Their journey is not hurried, it unfolds like the passing of seasons, natural and steady, each day a gift, each night a blessing of rest. And so the story closes not with clamor, not with noise, but with calm. The danger has passed, the shadows have lifted, and what remains is the steady heartbeat of the world, the soft murmur of rivers, the sigh of wind through branches, the call of an owl far in the distance. All of it comes together in harmony, wrapping you gently, carrying you toward your own rest. You might feel, as you listen, that you too are lying beneath the canopy of trees, the stars glimmering faintly above you. The ground beneath you is soft, covered in moss that feels like velvet, warmed by the day's lingering light. You breathe slowly, evenly, each breath carrying you deeper into calm. With every exhale, more of the day slips away. With every inhale, peace gathers around you, quiet and kind. The forest itself becomes like a lullaby. The rhythm of branches swaying above, the gentle drift of petals falling, the steady pulse of night creatures stirring softly, all of it forms a song without words, a song meant only to ease you further into stillness. And in that stillness, you discover what Snow White herself discovered, that rest is not an ending, but a sanctuary, a place of renewal where dreams unfold gently, where the spirit is nourished. The tale of Snow White, though filled with trials, carries within it a deeper gift, the reminder that light always returns, that kindness endures, and that even after the longest sleep, awakening comes with peace. It is a story not just of enchantments and kingdoms, but of the eternal rhythm of rest and renewal, a rhythm you too may now enter as you drift into your dreams. Let the story settle now, like mist over a meadow. Let its edges soften, its details blur, until all that remains is the feeling it has left within you, the feeling of safety, of calm, of being held by something greater than yourself. You are safe here. You are cradled by night. You are surrounded by stillness that asks for nothing more than your surrender to rest. And as you continue to drift, imagine the forest once more. The crystal coffin now lies empty, its surface glimmering in the moonlight, a relic of a time gone by. Snow White has walked on, carrying her light into a new life, and the forest holds only peace where once there was sorrow. You, too, may leave behind the weight of your day, walking into the quiet embrace of night with nothing to carry but ease. Each breath is slower now. Each moment stretches longer. The night deepens around you, soft and protective, like a blanket woven from stars. Perhaps you see the cottage in the distance, its windows glowing faintly. Perhaps you hear the laughter of the dwarfs, gentle and distant, like an echo from another dream. All of it is far away, fading softly, as your own dream world begins to open before you. You do not need to search for it. Dreams come naturally, like the tide, like the turning of the earth, like the slow rise of dawn. They will come to you as easily as sleep itself, bringing visions as gentle as the petals of flowers drifting to the ground. You are already on the threshold, already half within that quiet kingdom where imagination weaves its soft tapestry. And as you enter it, remember this: there is nothing to fear, nothing to resist. You are safe. You are guided. You are resting in a story that has always known how to end with peace. The forest grows quieter still. The moon climbs higher, silver and steady, casting light across the world. The stars glimmer above, countless and eternal. The river flows softly, steady as breath. All of nature settles, and you settle with it. Now your body is heavy, your mind light, your spirit calm. The day is over, its weight left behind. Ahead of you lies only the gentle unfolding of dreams, dreams that will hold you, comfort you, carry you deeper. And so, the story closes, not abruptly, not sharply, but like the final notes of a lullaby drifting away into silence. Snow White rests in peace, and so may you. The forest is calm, and so are you. The night is endless, and so is your rest. Let go now. Let yourself drift. Let the soft tide of sleep carry you away. You are safe. You are loved. You are at peace. Good night, sweet dreams, good night.